Hi there, I'm Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield from Transport Evolved, and today I'm focusing on the Chevrolet Bolt EV, or rather its European cousin, the Opel Ampera-e, and the fact that there seems to be quite a lot of limitation going on in its European rollout. By now, I'm going to assume that you're well aware of what the Chevrolet Bolt EV is and what its significance is in the electric vehicle marketplace in terms of price and of range. But what you might not know is that right now, the Chevrolet Bolt EV is only available in parts of North America, specifically the US and Canada. And even then, it's only available in limited markets within those countries, with full rollout of the US nationwide availability not expected until August this year, and full Canadian availability sometime after that. So far, GM has sold just under 5,000 Bolt EVs in the US since its launch late last year, plus another 500 or so in Canada. That's led some to question if GM is really keen on selling the Bolt EV in large volumes or not, or if indeed it's just another compliance car designed to ensure GM makes just enough cars to satisfy the zero-emission mandate of states like California and the 11 or so states that follow its lead. The jury is still out on this one, at least for now, although Elon Musk did postulate last week during Tesla's Q1 earnings call that he believed the Bolt EV was a compliance car, since GM seemed to be selling just enough to meet the zero-emission mandate, adding in that the price of ZEV credits at the moment isn't particularly high and thus aren't worth what they once were on the open market, and so not worth making any more. I don't think I'm in a position to confirm or discredit that theory, but it's certainly now starting to look as if something weird is going on with the Bolt EV. And I don't just mean the slow production ramp-up that's fairly common with new electric vehicles. No, I'm talking about the European market launch for the Opel Ampera-e, the Bolt EV's European cousin. While the Bolt EV won't even make it to right-hand drive markets like New Zealand, Australia, Ireland or the UK, GM has always planned to launch a rebadged Bolt EV in Europe as the Opel Ampera-e. This car, with its own trim options and content, but the same 60 kWh lithium-ion battery pack, drivetrain and chassis, was due to debut in Europe with a Norwegian launch. Given Norway's massive electric vehicle incentive programme and electric vehicle dominance in the new car marketplace, it seemed like a logical move. But, claim some Transport Evolved viewers who've gotten in touch with me, Opel Norway has been dragging its feet on the Bolt EV launch. Indeed, after obtaining more than 4,000 interested customers who signed up to buy an Opel Ampera-e way back in September last year, Opel Norway has now confirmed that it's not going to deliver more than a few hundred Ampera-es in Europe this year, writing to the other 3,700 reservation holders and telling them they won't be getting their Ampera-e until sometime next year. Speculation as to why is high. Some say that GM is dragging its feet because, just as the EV1, it may not really want to build an electric car, especially one which it admits isn't making any money right now. Others suggest that the recent sale of Opel brands by General Motors to Citroën Peugeot, that's PSA for those who don't know, has caused a slowdown in interest. And given PSA has its own, if very small, not well-developed plug-in vehicle program, that could at least be a possibility. Of course, Opel's PR manager for Norway has been working hard to tackle the rumours, stating that European allocations of Ampera-es is made on a month-by-month basis, something that's been familiar from GM way back when it was selling the European market version of the Chevrolet Volt, the Opel Ampera, a few years ago. This excuse, that it's essentially out of Opel's hands, isn't a particularly pleasant one, but it does have at least some credence, as it's fairly common in the automotive industry for car companies to prioritise sales in one market over another based on demand, especially if there are low production figures to begin with. But in this case, it seems like the perfect storm. GM has said it's losing money on the Bolt EV, and it's admitted that this year it only intends to make 30,000 cars or so, a tiny fraction of the number of internal combustion engine cars it makes, and a tiny fraction of the number of Model 3s that Tesla is preparing to shift in its first few years. At the same time, GM is, like the majority of the auto industry, pushing back against environmental air quality laws and fuel economy standards. While it's failing to make much ground outside of the US, it now has an ally in the White House eager to put company profits ahead of environmental stability under the frankly false claim that improving jobs and the economy. And yes, you heard me right, because like the rest of the industrial world, automation is the biggest threat to job security, not foreign workers or imported goods. Anyway, I digress. The point, however, is pretty clear. GM like any business, doesn't want to make a product that's losing money, and given the recent sale of its European brand to PSA, probably doesn't have that much interest in helping PSA sell the Ampera-e in Europe, and it would rather sell the Bolt EV in markets where those sales will help it meet zero-emission mandates instead. So the Ampera-e isn't much of a priority. Worse still, GM, even before it sold the Opel brand to PSA, had some serious jitters about selling the Bolt EV in Europe, rebadged or not. That's because its previous plug-in car, the Opel or Vauxhall Ampera, didn't sell that well, thanks in part to its high sticker price, limited dealer take-up, and frankly, American stylings that didn't suit European tastes. Like the Bolt EV, however, GM didn't really push the Ampera to European customers, nor did it really push the car in other markets like Australia, where it was sold as the Holden Volt. Add in the fact that GM sold Opel in the first place because of financial concerns, and our perfect storm is complete. So we're left with a car that's losing GM money, and presumably PSA too if it's purchased under license according to the terms of the Opel takeover. It will inevitably cost more in Europe rather than the US, due to all those shipping fees, and it won't earn GM any ZEV credits to boot because those cars will be sold outside of the US. It's no wonder Europe is being left out. Is GM behaving appropriately? Well, personally, I don't think so, and neither is PSA. The Bolt EV is a stonkingly good car. Yes, that's a lovely British word for you all to look up if you're not British. And frankly, GM is being a complete fool for not leveraging the market lead it has on the Tesla Model 3. So is PSA. But this doesn't mean we're at a who killed the electric car repeat performance. GM, like every other major automaker, knows that it needs to embrace electric vehicles, perhaps hydrogen fuel cell vehicles too, to stay relevant in the future. They are all in their own way. Yet, unlike Tesla, which survives on hype and hyperbole, as well as some damn good cars, GM and other automakers are trying to make electric cars in the same way they've made internal combustion engine vehicles for decades. The problem is, when companies like Tesla are around, you can't do that. Is the Ampera-e dead? No, not completely. But don't expect it to be a big seller. Instead, if you're in Europe, you should pin your hopes on the next generation Nissan Leaf, the upcoming Tesla Model 3, and the Renault Zoe, all of which have what it takes to bring Europe into the electric vehicle age. The Bolt EV, well, I think it's going to be a victim of GM's disinterest in selling it, and PSA's too, for that matter. Do you agree? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And of course, if you'd like to see more videos like this, why not contribute to our running costs via Patreon? I've left a link below and one at the end of this video. That's it. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow. And until next time, keep evolving.